Hello everyone, I'm back with a new video, and in this one we'll be talking about sharing an Intel iGPU between the host and the guest. So the good news is this guide should also work on laptops. So what do you need? You need an Intel GPU on your machine. So to make sure that you have one that is actually working, LSPCI, and make sure there is an Intel graphics card there. So you need to have virtualization enabled, at least VT-X needs to be enabled. So this guide should work with Ubuntu, Mint, and anything that's based on Ubuntu pretty much. If you have an nvidia GPU, so if you have some sort of hybrid graphics on a laptop, you would need to install the nvidia driver. So let's do that. Additional drivers. And I'll install the latest drivers from NVIDIA. So as far as the Intel GPU that you would need probably 5th generation and newer. So Intel processors starting with the 5000 series upwards. I don't think 4000 series is supported. Let's close all this. And we'll need to restart. I updated it, but also just to get the NVIDIA control panel to work. So let's reboot. Let's open NVIDIA settings, go to Prime Profiles and Intel Power Saving. So you can probably work around this, but I was having some issues when I shut down the virtual machine and it wasn't shutting down properly. So that's that, and now we need to reboot. To summarize, you need to have an Intel iGPU, 5th generation or newer. It can be a laptop, that's fine. And now we'll have to download the script that will allow us to get GVT-g working. So first, to get started, we'll have to download a couple things. And all of the links are included in the video description. We'll start with GVT-g helper, and that will make it easier for us to get all of this going. So instead of having to do all the commands manually, this is a series of scripts that will get it working. Next, we'll need Scream. That's optional, but I'll be using it in this guide. And so we'll need to download that. That's for audio pass-through, and Looking Glass to get the picture from the virtual machine to our display. So Looking Glass is pretty awesome. We'll download the B2 version, and they all should work. The B2 version automatically initiates Looking Glass on the guest startup, so you don't have to fiddle with registers or whatever. So we'll download the source, and remember which one you download, because you will have to download pretty much the same version for your guest machine. So we did the first one, so we'll download the same one later. So you cannot use this on the host and then this one on the guest. So, okay. So now that we have that out of the way, let's go to our downloads. So let's unzip Looking Glass, extract here. Let's unzip Scream, extract here, and GVT helper. Extracted here, and we can leave them right here. Scream Master, we'll have to move it into GVT helper. So now let's get our pass-through started. Let's open our terminal. Let's change directory into downloads and GVT helper. And let's become super user, or before we do that, chmod, let's make it executable. And part 1 will make it executable. So here are the different parts that we'll have to run. Part 1 that we'll need to reboot, part 2, and optionally part 3 that does the sound. So part 1 basically gets the grub ready. Part 2 gets the GPU pass-through ready. It creates the virtual graphics card, and part 3 gets the sound ready. So let's run part 1. You need to run it as a super user, part1.sh. Okay, so it will modify the grab command line, and it will add Intel IOMMU equals on, i915.enable underscore GVT equals 1, and kvm.ignore equals MSRS. If you want to change it, you can. You just hit Y. If you already done some things, and let's say the Intel IOMMU is there twice, you can erase it. So just hit Y and edit whatever needs to be edited. We don't need to edit it because it looks exactly the way it should. Now it's updating grab and it will install the required packages. Okay, now the computer needs to be rebooted. So press R and enter. Okay, so now we are back and we'll run part 2. So again, let's go back to downloads, GVT helper, sudo, and we'll run part 2. Okay. This is the user that will be using Looking Glass. It's needed for some file ownerships. If you want to use a different user, you will just need to say press N and change the username. Make sure it's the user that will be actually using everything. So in our case, it's correct. We'll hit yes and continue. Okay, part 2 is done. Our GPU should get created each time the system starts. Next, we'll start part 3 to get the Scream working. So again, sudo part 3. Okay, so Scream should be ready now. Right here, we have this file that was created, checkgpu.sh. So if you run it, it will give you the UUID of the virtual GPU we'll be using. So, and if you open it, this is the location, so you can play around with it. But if there is a long string of numbers, it's a good sign. Our GPU should be ready to be used. If there is nothing, then you have a problem, and either your computer doesn't support it, or the script doesn't work on your particular computer. So if you want to uninstall it later, you just need to run uninstall.sh. Next, we need to compile Looking Glass, which should be pretty easy. So let's go back, change directory, cd and dot dot, and we'll change directory into Looking Glass. And we'll type in mkdir client/build. Okay, in my case, I already did it. So next, we'll change directory to client/build, and we'll need to go cmake ... And all this is on Looking Glass website. So if you want more help with that, quick start guide, and right here, this is what you need to do. So cmake, and lastly make. Okay, so at this point, Looking Glass should be compiled, and you can find it here, client build. If you want it, you can move it somewhere else, just so you remember. I'll just move it right to home, but it doesn't matter where it is. So let's close it. Let's close this. We'll reboot one last time just to get Scream actually started, because it auto starts on startup and we haven't started the machine yet. So you can do it manually. I'll just reboot. Okay, next we'll have to create our virtual machine. So we'll start Virtual Machine Manager. and create a new virtual machine. Use your Windows 10 ISO. I downloaded it from Microsoft. Give it however much RAM you want. Or you know what, I'll give it 8 cores. Okay, it doesn't matter, whatever is available on your computer. This is a 10900K, so it has 20 threads. So in your case, leave something for the host. We'll need to configure or customize before install. We'll make this UEFI, apply. Let's make sure the CPU looks reasonable. So instead of 6 sockets or whatever, 8 sockets, we'll do 4 cores, 8 threads, and then you have to change this. Otherwise, you are stuck with one CPU. Okay, apply. And the boot option, enable boot menu. Let's select this, apply, and let's get our machine started. So begin installation. As soon as it starts, start pressing F2. So click on the black screen and start pressing F2 because we need to get here secure boot and disable secure boot. Some of the drivers might not be signed. So if you keep secure boot on, it won't work. Continue. Okay, it will boot from cd-rom. If it doesn't, just select cd-rom as the only boot option. And now we just need to install Windows. Okay, so we have our basic virtual machine up and running. We'll need to download some things. So let's open Explorer or whatever it is, Edge. And let's go to Looking Glass. And we'll need to download the Windows portion of Looking Glass. So downloads, remember, we downloaded this one. So the release candidate. And also, this is what we used on Linux, so this is what we'll use on Windows. We'll download it, save it. I'll just put it on desktop. Next, we'll go to Scream, Audio, Pass-through. Or you can just use the links I left in the video description. And we'll download if you scroll down. Okay. This one and Scream 3.6.zip. Okay, let's go back to Looking Glass actually. And we'll need one more thing. We'll need the driver for the ishmem device. So the enter virtual machine shared memory. That's what's used to copy, basically to transfer the picture you see on your screen from the virtual machine to the host. So, and there is a link somewhere right here, fedora.org. And you will need to download this, the latest one, and this will be the driver. Okay, so we can close this now. I believe it's finished, right? Yes. Okay, Scream we can install right now. And run its administrator. Install. Okay, so that's ready. Looking Glass, we can again install it right now. close it, and the driver we extract, and we'll use it soon. So let's shut this down, and let's open the terminal. And also, let's go to where our helper script is, and let's open versh.txt. So, next, sudo, we'll need to edit versh edit and win10, so the name of your virtual machine, win10 in my case, whatever you named it, that's what you have to enter, and we'll pick Nano, but you can use whatever editor you want, and let's scroll down. Okay, we'll add, so this is the GPU we'll be adding, the Intel iGPU, and we'll also need to add the inter-virtual machine shared memory portion from Looking Glass, and on their page right here. This should be enough for 1080. The 32 megs, you can read it on their page what you need depending on what resolution you are running. So 1080, this should be enough. We paste it here, and we Control O, enter, Control X to exit. As long as this says this, you were successful. If you get any errors, hopefully you shouldn't, but one possible error is if for whatever reason this actually doesn't exist. You should be able to check it here if you run this to see and make sure that it actually does exist. So let's open up our virtual machine again. Okay, so now we should see some additional devices. So device manager, system devices, and PCI standard RAM controller. Right click on that, update driver, browse, and wherever we extracted it, in our case here, Windows 10, AMD 64. That's for everybody running 64-bit version of Windows. Next, you have to agree to this. Okay, so that's our inter-virtual machine shared memory device. Let's not close it yet. We need our GPU. So scroll up, Microsoft Basic Display Adapter, the one with the exclamation point. That should be our Intel GPU. Update driver and search automatically. You have to be connected to the internet for this to work. So it should find the driver for your Intel GPU. It takes a while. It takes like 2 minutes, so just let it do its thing. Okay, so that's done. Let's close it, and let's shut this down. Let's go here, and what we'll do, Video QXL, we'll rename it to none, and apply. You can delete sound. We could have done it earlier, but whatever. I mean, you can keep it, you can delete it, whatever. We will be using Scream here, so I don't need it. And again, for sound, you can use something else. If you want to pass through a USB sound card, do that. You do whatever you want. This is a starting point. It's not the end station. So you can make it as good as you want. Well, limited by a Intel integrated graphics, obviously. Now, we'll need to open our command line. And let's start this, the virtual machine, and we'll need to start Looking Glass. So there should be no picture right here. We should be getting pictures through Looking Glass. In my case, it's I moved the Looking Glass client to the home directory, so it's right there. So I'll run it. Let's look at some options. Okay, so Normally, you should be able to run it with just this Looking Glass client -F. That will make it go full screen. That will generally work fine. But you can also modify some settings. One really useful option is this one, the escape key, because Looking Glass basically allows you to also capture the mouse and the keyboard, and by default it uses scroll lock, but like I tried it on a laptop, on a Razer Blade 15 or whatever, and that one doesn't have a scroll lock, I think. So I changed it to F12. And if you want to change the scroll lock to something else, I mean scroll lock, the key that allows you to switch between virtual machine and the host. Here we go. And let's search for F12. And F12 would be 69. So if you want to make it spacebar, which you probably shouldn't, but if you do, space back, space, I guess 205. I mean, it's not a very good choice, but you just need to find what you want to use as that escape key from the virtual machine. So 69, so let's see how that works. M69 and enter. It should start the Looking Glass client. And here we are. We have to change the resolution to full screen. And as you can see, if I try to move my mouse, it's not very, well, right now it's okay, but originally it wasn't. That's because I'm still in my host. So to lock it, I press F12, and now if I do Alt Tab, it's only locked to the guest. So let me do this first. Display settings, and we'll change it to 1080. Keep settings, and I can open Explorer, and when I do Alt Tab, it's basically only here. It's as if I was running Windows natively on this machine. So I can switch between these. So if I press F12 again, capture disabled, and I can go back to my Linux machine. So F12, by default it's scroll lock, just so you know. So device manager, we can see that we are using Intel UHD graphics. Again, the performance is what it is. So sound, we should be using Scream. So you should hear everything through your host speakers or headphones, whatever you are using. Works pretty well. I had some issues with sound quality, so your mileage may vary, but you can try pass-through with a USB sound card, as I said earlier. You have different options. Also, you might want to look into optimizing the performance. Maybe, you know, I don't know how useful core pinning would be in this situation. If you need to troubleshoot this, what you can do is go back right here and change the video from none back to QXL and start the virtual machine again. You will get picture right here in the viewer, and then make sure you have the intervirtual shared memory device here, right here. So this needs to be among the system devices, and the GPU needs to be your Intel GPU, and also Looking Glass has to be running. So right here, if one of those things isn't working, then you need to get that to work. So other things that might not work, and when it comes to troubleshooting Scream, go to user bin scream audio.sh, and by default it uses virtual bridge 0. If you are using something else, then you have to change it to that device. And also when you go to home, user, config, auto start and audio.sh desktop. This is what starts it. So if you decide to make some changes there, you might have to change this. So that would be it. The links to the individual manuals for each of these, like Looking Glass, Scream, and GVT-g are in the description. So you can look into those. And if you need to troubleshoot it, good luck. It will be a lot of fun troubleshooting this because there is so many components. So yeah, that's that for Intel iGPU pass-through. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.